Good day, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Now, I apologize for my voice, but I'm actually a little bit sick. But before I get into that, you can find me on Facebook, YouTube, and One Way. And I am now on BitChute as well. The reason for that is because, as we all know, anyone who's been on the internet at all will be familiar with the fact that platforms like YouTube and Facebook censor, and Twitter and others do a lot of censorship of people who are religious, people who are just alternative, and basically anyone who disagrees with the mainstream narrative is basically a Nazi. And then they ban you for hate speech, if you disagree with anything that the mainstream believes to be orthodoxy, and believes that everyone should believe, right? So, as a sort of preemptive strike, because you never know when it's going to happen at the end of the day. So I've been on One Way for a while now. For those of you who are interested, One Way is for Christians specifically, which is quite nice to have something just for Christians. You don't have to put up with a lot of the unsavory content that other places have, that because there are other places out there that are very much about free speech, but then they can basically have pornography and all that kind of garbage on there. So One Way is pretty good that it doesn't allow any of that. Now and so now I'm BitChute as well, just in case. So today, and as you can tell from my voice, I am actually sick. My video yesterday, my voice was actually a little bit funny already. I thought it was just allergies. I wish it was just allergies, but it seems like I've got allergies plus a cold or something ridiculous like that. I woke up at about 3 in the morning feeling absolutely wretched, and I've just haven't come right since. So I'm now sitting at home. I've got the day off from work, and I was bored. Right, so I thought, let me make a video, do something constructive, because even though I don't sound particularly well, I think I still am. I'm intelligible, should I say? Anyway, so let's get stuck right in. We're doing the number 8, right? Contradiction number 8. Let's get stuck right into it. So if we go to the source number 8, it asks, how old was Abram when Ishmael was born? And here we have all of the necessary Bible verses. It says Genesis here contradicts the testimony given by those verses over there, right? And just out of sheer interest, I would like you guys to note, so these people are criticizing Christians for being a particular way, but over here, if you pay attention, number 7, which I've already done, how long was the Ark of the Covenant in Abinadab's house? But then number 9, it says, how long was the Ark of the Covenant? So it basically repeats the same question twice. So when I eventually get around to doing number 9, I'm actually going to be doing number 10, right? So from that point onwards, the number of my videos is going to be mismatched with this particular source, because they've basically just duplicated a question over here. So obviously I'm not going to bother doing that again, right? So now let's get stuck into the actual biblical texts that they provide. Let's go here, right? So it says here, now it's asking how old Abraham was. Now the first reference they give is pretty explicit. It says he was 86 years old, right? It actually answers the question for you. Okay. Hang on, I keep forgetting this. Before we continue, we need to ask the question that if we assume that this is a contradiction, if we grant that it is a contradiction, would it affect what James tells us what the Bible is for? Basically saying it is God-breathed, not directly dictated or anything like that, but that it is God-breathed by inspiration, that it's good for reproof, etc., unto good works and doctrine and teaching. If this was a contradiction, does it touch that at all? Namely, the idea that the Bible is a providentially preserved an infallible testament of his will, of his nature, of his character, and that the Bible, whilst it's not a historical book that's meant to give little details, is there for doctrine, for religious instruction, ethics, morals, and religious teaching. And the fact of the matter is that the answer is no, even if it is a contradiction, right? Even if we grant that it is a contradiction, even if upon investigation it turns out to be a contradiction, this doesn't affect that in the slightest, okay? If there is a slight mismatch of when how old Abraham was when he was meant to do certain things, it really does not actually matter in the slightest, okay? So let's go back to the source. So the first source basically gives it to us, right, straight up. But we need to continue because obviously there's a problem. And it says here, and Terah lived 70 years. All right, after he lived 70 years, he became the father of Abram. Now Terah was obviously Abram's father. So Terah was 70 years old when Abram was born. Okay, so it looks like it's setting something up here. And it says here, and the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran, okay? But then it goes to Acts, and it says over here, right? And this is where it seems to be the confusion, right? Where it's talking about men, brethren, glory appeared to. So this is now in the Acts, in the New Testament, they're basically they're talking about before. They're giving an account, right, to the believers, right? Appeared unto our and when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dwelt in Haran. Now this place here, Haran, is different is the same place as it's talking about before, but one is Hebrew, one is Greek. Let me see if I bore him Ishmael. All right, there we go. So Haran here, right, is the same place, right? It's the same place. It's just different spellings for the same place because these are separated by thousands of years. The name has changed ever so slightly. That happens, right? That actually does happen. It's not a problem. Okay. And he said unto him, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, and come into the land which I shall show thee. Okay. So God gave Abraham the instruction to leave where he was and go and live somewhere else. And it says, then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans and dwelt in Haran. And from thence, when his father was dead, he removed him into this land, wherein ye now dwell. Now, it would appear that the person who is objecting to this believes that Abraham only left once his father was dead, right? So if his father was 205, right? If his father was 205, right? But Abraham was born when he was 70, that would mean that Abram was 135 years old when he left. But is this the case, right? I would like to suggest that the individual here is actually not reading this carefully, right? So there are actually some very relevant verses that one has to actually go into. So the basic story here is God says to Abram, come out, right? Leave where you are, right? And these are some of the details. Now, if we go to Genesis, we see here something very, very interesting. Okay. It talks here about the death of Sarah. Okay. And Sarah died in I forgot the name of this thing again now. Let's have a look, see here what the name is. Yeah, Kiria. Right, Kiria-ir. Okay, so Kiria-ir, that's actually how you pronounce that. Now, if you have been watching my videos, you'll know we've already dealt with this passage, right? Sarah died, right, in Kiria-arba. Okay, Kiria-arba. Now, Kiria-arba is the same place that Daniel, right, Kiria-ir was where the Ark of the Covenant was kept in Abinadab's house. So this is the same country. It's the same place where Sarah died, and eventually Israel was sort of founded, and one of the places, right? So now look here what it's saying. Sarah died. So now the rest of of this chapter is talking about how Abraham stood up before his dead and spake unto the sons of Heth, saying, I'm a stranger and sojourner with you. So he's now moved away from wherever it was his father, right? Give me a possession of a burying place with you, that I might bury my dead out of my sight. And the children of Heth answered Abraham, saying unto him, Hear us, my lord. Thou art a mighty prince among us. In the choice of our sepulchres bury thy dead. None of us shall withhold from thee his sepulchre, but that thou mayest bury your dead. So basically, Abraham had a very, very good relationship with the people in the land at the time. And this tells you basically about how Abraham, once Sarah died, in this particular location, he approaches the people that own the land and offers to purchase the land from them, so that he could have a burying place for his wife, right? And it goes on to say that he eventually gives him 400 shekels of silver, right? It's what he pays for it. Okay, 400 shekels of silver, and it's the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, right? Now something you have to understand about the ancient people, that when you get a place, when you own a place, it's for burying your dead. That place belongs to you forever. Okay, it's never meant to. It literally belongs to you forever. Which is why when the Israelites left Egypt, they came back to this place. And the reason they had to go to war with the Canaanites is because the Canaanites had taken possession of this land which did not belong to them, and had to displace them because they wouldn't leave. All right, so this idea that the Israel was a genocidal, warmongering place was actually nonsense. They were coming back to something that Abraham, their forefather, legally had rights to, and that their own dead were buried there. Okay, so this isn't an invading army. This is people that are returning. Okay, but this is very important, right? This is very important. So this place now belongs to him, right? And the field and the cave that there is therein were made sure unto Abraham, right? So made it is now legally his. He paid for it, for a possession of a burying place. So the cave, and it talks about the trees and all the borders. So this big plot of land where he was going to use as a burying place for all of his ancestors. Okay, now we know, if we go back into the old world, how they did things. If people moved around, right? If they died wherever they had gone, the bodies of those people were generally returned to the family place of burial, right? We still do it to this day, right? We still do it to this day. If you're on holiday or whatever the case might be, sort of thing, or you're away for some reason, or family emigrates, or whatever the case might be, a lot of the times we return our family members at often great expense back to their hometown or home place, or whatever the case might be, and bury them where their ancestors are where their ancestors were buried. So this is a practice we still keep till this very, very day. So this is actually what's going on here, right? If we go back to Acts, what is he saying? It says, then came he. Who's he? He's talking about Abraham, right? Out of the land of the Chaldeans. All right, so this here is talking about what God said to him, right? Now talking about, and now it says, then he, Abraham, came out of the land of the Chaldeans, yes, and dwelt in Haran, right? And from thence, who? Abraham, when his father was dead, he, Abraham, removed him, his father, into where? This land. Right? So went and collected his father, right? Because he'd left his father, brought him into this land wherein ye now dwell. And we know it's the same. We've just looked just now. It's the same. It's the exact same place, right? There's exact same land. So this was just a custom thing. So this is not saying that Abraham only left to live in Haran when his father died. He left before his father died, but when his father then perished, he brought him into this land because in this land he had purchased territory that served for the purpose of the burial of the family and the ancestors and all of that sort of thing. So that's literally, that's all that's going on here, right? Now it is interesting. If we look, let's go further on, right? It says here in just the next chapter, right? Genesis 12, it says here, this is now God talking to Abraham, the context itself. Now the Lord said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house. So his father's still alive, okay? His father's still alive. Come out of your father's house unto a land that I will show thee. So his father here is still alive. His father's house is still there, is still around. Leave thy kindred and thy father's house, and I will make thee a great nation. Right, so that's basically all it's talking about, right? There is no contradiction here. It's just reckoning. The individual who dealt with this particular verse was obviously confused, which is understandable. Sometimes we get confused about stuff, you know. But it also could just be that the individual couldn't be bothered to read the text carefully and to understand the culture, what the people do, put it into context, that people, you know, even for example, right, if we think of the story of Joshua, right? Joshua, who was Joshua's Isaac's son, and he eventually became a great ruler in Egypt, right? This was before the Egyptian captivity, that Israel's were slaves in Egypt. And when he died, right, when Joshua died, he made his brothers and his ancestors promise that they would eventually take his bones back to be buried with his fathers. And this is actually precisely what they did in the end of the day. So this actually happens in other places in the Bible as well, where the individual who has been displaced from his homeland requests of his ancestors and his or family or his kins or whatever the case might be, and says to them, listen, please take my bones or my body, or in whatever state that it is at that time, when you are able to, and take me back to be buried with my fathers in the family burial grounds, wherever that might be, right? So this is not a contradiction in the slightest at all. The individual simply is failing to read it carefully and to understand the context and the practices of these individuals in those times, which is it's not particularly far removed from even how we practice it today. We still do things like this today, specifically the more wealthy people today. In those days, it was a thing that everyone did because this whole idea of family and ancestors was very, very important. It's not as important for us today, although more wealthy families usually have plots of land where grandfathers and uncles and people have, you know, if people have been in a particular place for a very long time, and people still do that today. So it's not a contradiction in the slightest. Yeah, man, there's just not much else to say about it, really. I mean, these people are not acting in good faith when they say that these contradictions are there. This is very, very poor scholarship, and it doesn't even have to be scholarship. It's just poor reading of the text. The person is not being careful in the slightest. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is not a contradiction at all. And that said, I thank you very much for your viewership. Subscribe and share, hit the like button and all that kind of stuff. That actually helps me out to grow the channel and all that sort of thing. And other than that, God bless, and I will see you guys next time. Cheerio. Take it easy. Bye.